the book of Judges. We are at chapter 8, and we're going to be sharing the screen, which is here. And we are telling the story of Gideon. Gideon was a very interesting judge. And we read of how he was sort of like chosen by God. He was from the tribe of Manasseh, from a small family, the Abiezers, and he's a young man, and it's not really clear why he's chosen to save the people of Israel. And may I remind you that the book of Judges is like this whole classic cycle, which I'm sure you're already familiar with, but because we had a long break, we need a reminder. The cyclical structure, okay? The transgression phase, disobeying God, worshiping other gods, idol worshipers, okay? God's not happy, okay? So punishment phase. What's the punishment? He brings other nations to oppress the people of Israel. The local nations around the land of Israel, which would be the Midianites, the Amalekites, the Philistines, and whoever's around is the local player, which is kind of like asked by God, go to war against Israel, you will prevail, because although the people of Israel are the chosen people and they're my favorites, right now they're not behaving. So you go discipline and you'll win. Don't worry. Okay. It's like kind of like because or else they might be afraid of going against the Israelites, because they know God's with them. Then the people of Israel definitely feel the punishment, so they cry out. Who do they cry out? They don't cry out to the idol worshippers or to the gods that are made of stone or the trees. They call out to the real God, to the God of Israel. Please help us. Okay, you've always helped us. And God sends them the salvation, which is usually in the book of Judges, a judge, someone who's a warrior, someone who's a leader, not necessarily a judge in the sense that we know that sits on the bench, although we've seen some of them do that. It usually means someone who God's spirit kind of like lands on them, goes into their being, and they rise and have these charisma and special powers to deliver the people of Israel out of the hands of their oppressors, and then they are successful. Okay, so Gideon was successful in delivering the people of Israel out of the oppressing hands of the Midianites. So then comes the peace phase, usually 20, 40 years. Very rarely we see judges that bring peace for 80 years. Can you imagine peace for 80 years in Israel today? Like, we would all sign that. That's a ceasefire, but a long ceasefire, that's good. We'll all take that. And we'll see that Gideon, I think he delivers 40 years, which means also like that you did a good job. And then what happens is that once the war is over, okay, the people, the Israelites from the tribe of Ephraim, okay, pursue the Midianites, and they capture their generals, Orev and Ze'ev. Orev in Hebrew is crow, the bird, crow, and Ze'ev is a wolf. So they killed Orev and Ze'ev, and they brought their heads to Gideon. So the tribe of Ephraim is the one that kills the general, but they're not very active. They don't participate too much in the war. And chapter 8 starts with their complaint to Gideon, why didn't you call us to war? Okay, so chapter 8, verse 1, and those in Ephraim's contingent said to him, to Gideon, why did you do that to us, not calling us when you went to fight in the Midianites? And they rebuked him severely. So they're like, hey, you're from the tribe of Manasseh. You're our brother. Ephraim and Manasseh are brothers. We're adjacent. We're neighbors. You should have called us out to war. Now, did he call them or not? We don't know. What we do know is that there were 22,000 warriors that were called. So all of Israel were called to war, but not everyone showed up. So he could also answer them and say, where were you guys? What, you didn't hear there's a war going on? It's like open the news, it's there. But if we remember, God told them there are too many people, and he only left 300 people to go to war deliberately to show the great power of God, that God could deliver the people of Israel even with just 300 warriors. So anyone could make the claim of why didn't you invite us to the war? But what is Gideon's response? But he answered them, after all, what have I accomplished compared to you? Why? Ephraim's gleanings are better than Abiezer's vintage. Okay? God has delivered the Midianite generals, Oreb and Zeev, into your hands. And what was I able to do compared to you? And when he spoke in this fashion, their anger against him abated. Okay, so they were calmed down by his response. What was his response? He's like, I'm nothing compared to you. You've got the heads of the big generals, okay? And what you did is so amazing, and you guys were great. So even though I went to war, I did nothing, okay? You're really the ones who brought the great victory to the Israelites. So he's like, kissing their tuchus, as we would say in Yiddish, right? So they feel a little bit better, and that calms them down. And it almost feels like a vain argument. It's just like, I'm right, you're right. It's like this back and forth. So he decides he's not going to fight with them about this, which shows his leadership. Although he could have responded, this is what God said. God said go only with 300 warriors. So it's not really clear, why is he not sticking to the line of I was just a messenger of God. That's what I did. So he has a little bit of an ego here, even though like he cancels his ego, it actually brings it's kind of like does the counter here. And then verse 4, Gideon came to the Jordan and crossed it. The 300 men with him were famished, but still in pursuit, because now they're pursuing the kings of the Midianites. The generals were captured and beheaded by Ephraim, but they're still the kings that have to be captured. So he said to the people of Sukkot, please give some loaves of bread to the troops who are right behind me, for they are famished. And I'm pursuing Zevach and Salmonah, the kings of Midian. But the officials of Sukkot replied, are Zevach and Salmonah already in your hands, that we should give bread to your army? Ooh, that's a very harsh, okay? And they're not cooperating. They're not giving him food. This is like your own people who are in pursuit of the two kings. This could bring great victory to the people of Israel, but they're deciding to be neutral here for some reason, right? Why would they be neutral?
They don't want to get into a war.
Yeah, because if Zevach and Salmonah, these two kings, win the war over Gideon, over Israel, they might retaliate against the people who gave bread to his army, right?
Right.
So they want to be really careful. So Gideon is not very happy with that. He says, I swear, declared Gideon, when God delivers Zevach and Salmonah into my hands, I'll thresh your bodies upon desert thorns and briars.
Right.
From there,
To the cactus.
yeah, from there he went up to Pnuel and made the same request of them. But the people of Pnuel gave him the same reply as the people of Sukkot. So he also threatened the people of Pnuel, when I come back safe, I'll tear down this tower. Now Zevach and Zalmunna were at Karkor with their army of about 15,000 people. These were all that remained of the entire host of the Kedemites, for the slain numbered 120,000 fighters, the war that Israel won over. Gideon marched up the road of the tent dwellers up to east of Novach and Yogvach and routed the camp, which was off guard. Zevach and Salmonah took to fight with Gideon in pursuit. He captured Zevach and Zalmunna, the two kings of Midian, and threw the whole army into panic. On his way back from the battle at the ascent of Cheres, Gideon, son of Joash, captured a young man from among the people of Sukkot and interrogated him. The latter drew up for him a list of the officials and elders of Sukkot, 77 in number. Then he came to the people of Sukkot and said, here are Zevach and Zalmunna, about whom you mocked me, saying, are Zevach and Zalmunna already in your hands, that we should give your famished men bread? And he took the elders of the city, and bringing desert thorns and briars, he punished the people of Sukkot with them. As for Pnuel, he tore down its tower and killed the townspeople. Okay? So this is a very harsh story because it's like an inner fight of the Israelites. So I wanted to talk about that for a moment. But first, I just want to go over the map here with you. This is where the fight happens. These are the tribes that join Gideon. Okay. And here in Ophrah is where he wins the battle. Then the kings of Zevach and Salmunna, kings of Midian, cross the Jordan and run over here. This is a very long hike. They got here to Karkor. Karkor is already in the Jordan side, but here in Sukkot and Pnuel, these are local Israeli tribes, the tribe of Gad and Reuven. Okay, and so he goes back with the two kings. He goes back here. Okay, and the whole story with the people of Ephraim happens here. So the entire army of Midianites flees, but Gideon and the rest of the people capture them either here or here. Okay, so what's this city of Zevach and of Sukkot and Pnuel? Both cities were located in the Transjordan, the land east of the Jordan River. According to the book of Joshua, this territory was assigned to the tribes of Gad and Reuven. So when we read the book of Joshua, we saw that these parts belong to Gad and Reuven. Sukkot was part of the territory given to the tribe of Gad. Pnuel was also located with the tribal borders of Gad, situated along the Yabok River. Okay, there's a river here, a very important river that flows into the Jordan River, and it's called the Yabok River. What's the nature of the betrayal? When Gideon asks for bread, he isn't asking as a stranger. He's asking as a fellow Israelite and a judge, a leader of the people. The official's refusal was a major breach of brotherhood first, because they prioritized their own safety over the survival of their fellow Israelite soldiers, and political loyalty. They were essentially hedging their bets. They feared that if Gideon failed to capture Zebach and Salmonah, the Midianites would come back and punish them for helping Gideon. Okay? So why is Gideon's punishment so harsh? Because Gideon's brutal response, threshing the men of Sukkot with thorns and killing the men of Pnuel, is often seen by scholars as a sign of his shifting character. While he started his journey as a humble deliverer, his treatment of these two Israelite towns shows a move towards civil war and personal vengeance. Okay, so he's not the greater, bigger person in, like we thought with the tribe of Ephraim, that he just, that was just a maneuver that he did. He didn't really mean that. He could be a vicious leader, and he doesn't have the capacity of seeing like the entire people of Israel and the good of the people of Israel. Why are you going and killing other Israelites, for doing that? By refusing him, Sukkot and Pnuel were effectively saying they didn't recognize Gideon's authority or God's victory, which he viewed as an act of treason against the confederation of Israelite tribes. So it's kind of like starting a civil war here in that sense. So after this sad encounter, verse 18, then he asks Zebach and Salmunah, okay, which are the Midianite kings, those men you killed at Tavor, what were they like? So they looked just like you, they replied, like sons of a kings. They were my brothers, he declared, the sons of my mother. As God lives, if you had spared them, I would not kill you. Okay, so he's like saying something like not very clear, but he said, because you killed my brothers from my mother's side, I'm going to kill you. If not, I wouldn't have killed you. But now I'm kind of like obligated to revenge their death, which again shows like he should probably just kill them because they are the enemy. They're the kings of the. There's but he's bringing in the wrong reasons in account. He's not acting like a leader. Everything he's doing is like personal vengeance. It's all related to him. It's not like seeing the global bigger picture as a leader. And this is kind of like this disappointment because he seemed like a really great leader at the beginning. So now he commanded his oldest son, Yeter, go kill them. But the boy did not draw his sword, for he was timid, being still a boy. Okay, so he was a warrior. Yeter was a warrior and was a soldier, but he didn't want to kill the king. So it's not because he was like afraid of killing. He wasn't afraid of killing. The problem was killing kings. Kings at ancient times were considered very special people. If you were elected to be a king, even if it was like a foreign king, everyone would revere you. You would have like everyone would see you like chosen by God or elevated by the people. So killing a king would not be a good thing because it would kind of like get back to you, like the karma would get back to you. So he didn't want to mess around with that. He was like fearful of that. So what happens? Then Zebach and Zalmunah said to Gideon, come, you slay us, for strength comes with manhood. So Gideon went over and killed Zebach and Zalmunah, and he took the crescents that were on the necks of their camels. So they knew they're going to die. Anyhow, so it's like, if we are going to die, we want to be killed by the person who won the war, by you. You're the leader, you take responsibility. So he took the crescents that were on the necks of their camels to show that now, he won the war and he got the spoils. Then those who fought on Israel's side said to Gideon, rule over us, you, your son, and your grandson as well, for you have saved us from the Midianites. So now something really fascinating happens. Okay, and this is kind of like the quest for a king. The people of Israel suddenly say, you know what? You did such a great job winning over the Midianites. We want to make you the king of Israel. Now, the Israelites are not, the rest of Israel don't really necessarily see the problems we saw with Gideon. Okay, they might still see him like a humble person, and God's kind of like with him. And maybe after a cycle of getting these judges that save them for 20, 40 years, they want more stability. They want like a king that will conquer land and will keep Israel safe and will unite all the people of Israel together. So they have that notion, but now they're acting like the other nations. The Israelites are not supposed to have a king. There's only one king in Israel, which is God. God is, right? We say Avinu Malkeinu. God is our father and king. They shouldn't be turning to human beings to rule over Israel. The Israelites have been fine without a king for hundreds of years. They've had Moses in the desert. They've had Joshua lead them. They had all these judges. They have Aaron the priest. Okay, we don't need a king in Israel. That's not the way it works in the Bible, at least not until now. The book of Judges, if you remember, I said that at the introduction a few months ago, is set to lay the ground for choosing a king later on. But because choosing a king is such a foreign concept to the Torah, and the Torah actually goes against it, telling to the Israelites, don't appoint a king. Okay, so the fact that the Israelites want a king is kind of like, and it happens afterwards. You have to explain it. You have to give a good reason for how politically could something like that happen. So the first attempt to crown a king is here with Gideon. It's not going to work. We're going to see that, but at least that idea, that notion that maybe we'll be better off with a king is kind of like introduced here in this chapter. So remember that because it's very important. So Gideon replied, I will not rule over you myself, nor shall my son rule over you. God alone shall rule over you. So he gives the right answer. And Gideon said to them, I have a request to make of you. Each of you give me the earring you received as booty. The Midianites had golden earrings, for they were Ishmaelites. Certainly, they replied, anything you say, right? And they spread out a cloth, and everyone threw onto it the earring he had received as booty. The weight of the golden earrings that he had requested came to 1,700 shekels of gold. This was in addition to the crescents and the pendants and the purple robes worn by the kings of Midian, and in addition to the collars on the necks of their camels. Lots of gold. What does Gideon do with all of that? Gideon made an ephod. It's a vest of this gold, and set it up in his own town of Ophrah. So he takes all this gold, does this gold vest, okay, this huge vest that's made of gold, and we'll talk about that in a moment, okay? And he takes us to his hometown in Ophrah, not to the temple, not anywhere else, but like to his hometown. There, all Israel went astray after it, and it became a snare to Gideon and his household. So they see all this gold, the Israelites, and they're like, "Oh, wow, this is like something made by the leader that we want him to be king." He takes it back home, will sanctify this ephod, this vest, and will worship it. So exactly the opposite things happens of what Gideon wanted. Gideon wanted to, I'm not going to be the king. There's only one king, which is the God of Israel. But the people of Israel, they're determined. We want something physical. We want something tangible. So all this gold is collected, and he makes something special out of it, which we'll see in a moment. What is this? Ephod. And then the people start worshiping it, which is like, exactly the opposite of what's supposed to happen.
Second time.
Second time. Yeah, it's like the golden calf, right? This reminds us the story of the golden calf, where the people of Israel, very good, Chaya, okay, the people of Israel are supposed to, wait for Moses to come down with the Torah and wait for God. And they're like, no, where is God? We want God now. We want Moses now. And Aaron tells them, okay, let's do a golden calf from all your gold. And he does that. And the people worship it. So the people of Israel always have a problem worshiping something that's not tangible, that they can't see, touch, worship to. The concept of belief is not an easy concept, right? We know that from ourselves. So thus, Midian submitted to the Israelites and did not raise its head again, and the land was tranquil for 40 years in Gideon's time. So Jerubbaal, son of Joash, retired to his own house. Jerubbaal is Gideon. Gideon had 70 sons of his. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. We'll go back to this in a moment. I wanted to go to our PowerPoint here. Why? Because I want to talk a little bit more about the attempt to make Gideon king. The next book we're going to study is the book of Samuel. And in the book of Samuel, 2 kings are appointed. The first one is King Saul, who's not successful, and then King David, who is successful and becomes the king, right? That unites the people of Israel. So in Samuel 1, chapter 8, we learn a little bit about what it means to have a king for the people of Israel and why that's not something that's really recommended. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons judges over Israel. They sat as judges in Beersheba. That's my hometown where I'm from in Israel. But his sons did not follow in his ways. They were bent on gain. They accepted bribes and they subverted justice. Okay, so Samuel was a great leader and prophet and judge, but his sons were exactly the opposite. But he appointed them, nonetheless, to be leaders. All the elders of Israel assembled and came to Samuel at Ramah, and they said to him, "You have grown old, and your sons have not followed your ways. Therefore, appoint a king for us to govern us like all other nations." Okay, we want to be like all the others. We want stability. We don't want you to pass on the leadership to your sons who are corrupt. Samuel was displeased that they said, "Give us a king to govern us." Samuel prayed to God, and God replied to Samuel, "Heed the demand of the people in everything they say to you, for it is not you that they have rejected. It is me they have rejected to rule over them. Like everything else they have done ever since I brought them out of Egypt to this day. Heed their demand, but warn them solemnly and tell them about the practices of any king who will rule over them." So even God says, you know what? I can't do this with these people anymore. Like if they don't understand I'm like the only king, give them a king, give them a human being to rule them, but warn them, okay, that if they have a king, it won't end very well. Okay, it's not, kings are not the best way to govern the people of Israel. And there's still rules that we will look at in the book of Deuteronomy of when the Israelites appoint a king. He's limited to the amount of wives he can take, He's limited to the amount of horses and gold and silver that he could take. He has to be modest in a sense. Okay, he can't take everything belongs to him like other kings. Did the kings do that? We don't know exactly. Probably not, but at least the rules are there in place. Yes.
So, I kind of get if his sons did not follow in his ways, then, and the elders saw that, I mean, they just figured that that's gonna, we need somebody else. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it was kind of normal to say, give, maybe not, I mean, what else could they have done? Wait for another prophet? Is that it, or what?
Yeah, God would have found the solution for them,
Okay.
right? But they keep pressing for king, we want king, king, king.
Okay.
But when you analyze the text, the writer needs to explain how come there's a king if you're not supposed to have a king.
Mhm.
So this is kind of like the setting. We tried so many other forms of government, so now we're gonna try king. Okay,
Wow.
Elaine,
Eileen,
Eileen,
it's all right.
Yeah.
I've been called other things.
yeah. You asked about the ephod.
Yeah.
The ephod is a priestly garment. Here's one if you've been to the Israeli Knesset, right? So if you go down the stairs here, you see a replica of the ephod, the priestly garment, which they wear on their chest. Okay. And it has the 12 tribes of Israel marked on them. Okay, you see there's 12, 3 by 4, and each one has a different tribe. So that priest, the high priest, wears on him the ephod that has all the tribes of Israel on him. Like he's like the guardian of the people of Israel when he goes and worships God in the holy of holy places. So it's kind of like a reminder to God, like this is not just any ordinary person. This is the high priest, and he's representing all the people of Israel. So everywhere he walks with this piece of gold on him.
Is
So
it
Gideon,
bulletproof?
what?
Is it bulletproof?
Is it bulletproof? So the people of the people that come and ask Gideon to be king, and instead he says, no, I'm just gonna make this a fault for you. So he is kind of like saying, it's not really clear. Like it sounds like he's given sanctity. Like I'll unite all of the people of Israel into the ephod through something tangible. And he misses the point. That's not your job to do. The priest is the one that's supposed to do that. So he's like overstepping boundary, and he's making something tangible into the tool that will unite the people of Israel instead of him. You're the leader, you should do that as a human being. Okay? And there's a very interesting midrash in Yalkut Shimoni on this, and Gideon made it into an ephod. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, there are 3 about whom it is said that they reached a good old age: Abraham, David, who is compared to him, and Gideon, who's compared to him. Yet Gideon is not fully equal to them, as it is stated, and Gideon made it into an ephod, and it became a stumbling block. Okay, you remember we read here. He made the ephod, and all of Israel went astray after it, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his household. Okay, so this is the stumbling block that we're talking about. He made the ephod, maybe out of good intentions of uniting the people of Israel, or kind of like, I don't want to be king, but let's do something else. Okay, but it became a stumbling block. It became the wrong thing to do. So why did he make an ephod? Because Menashe, his tribe, was not included among the stones of the ephod, but Ephraim was, and he had no mazal, no fortune standing. Therefore, he made it. And even though he made it for the sake of heaven, It became a stumbling block for all Israel, who stumbled because of it and thought it was something else. And others say he intended it mistakenly and then corrected it. But since his tribe was not part of the ephod, he had no mazal in that ephod and in that attempt at correction. Okay, so let's try to understand this midrash a little bit more piece by piece, because it's very difficult reading. So first of all, ephod. Ephod, as we said, is the priestly garment worn by the high priest, included stones representing the tribes of Israel associated with the divine guidance. So when the priest wears this, it becomes like a divine guidance. People asked the ephod questions. They're like, and they would like blink, different lights would blink and give answers as to what's like the correct answer, like and what's God's like way of doing things. Okay, the next one is the michshol, which is the biblical, the Hebrew term for the stumbling block that the ephod became. Okay, which means something that causes spiritual failure. So he did it for the sake of heaven, acting with pure religious intention, but the mazal, the spiritual alignment, fortune, or destiny, had no luck alone, but fit within a divine system. Okay, so it's really up to God. It's not just about luck. Okay, and then what's the comparison here between three leaders, Abraham, David, and Gideon? Gideon is almost equal, but falls short because of the ephod. If not for the ephod, he could have been a great leader. So the core problem of the ephod is that he made it and it became a stumbling block. Gideon's action were sincere and religious. He wanted to do something to unite the people of Israel and to kind of like honor God after the war. The result is that it's misunderstood by the people and it led to misuse or near idolatry. And good intentions sometimes don't bring good outcomes. Okay, how does there's a saying like that, right? How does the saying go? Good intentions could lead to
Oh, yeah.
could lead to hell.
Now, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes, exactly. So this is exactly a classic example of that. The Midrash's claim that Menashe was not in the stones of the ephod. What does that mean? Menashe is one of the tribes, right? But biblically, Menashe is included via Joseph. So there are 12 stones on the ephod. Each stone represents one of the 12 tribes. However, we know that Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Menashe. So it would be 13 if we would have them. But yeah, it has to have be 12. There are 12 tribes. So Joseph is one stone representing Menashe and Ephraim. But Ephraim is not, Menashe is not, doesn't see themselves included. Why? Okay, not in a literal way, but in a conceptual way. And there are three interpretations to that. One, which is a weaker representation. Ephraim is the dominant tribe, and Menashe is less central. So not in the ephod, meaning they're not fully represented or influential. So when you say the tribe of Joseph, even in the Bible, you usually mean the tribe of Ephraim. You don't mean in the Menashe. He's like forgotten. And this goes back historically to Ephraim being the more dominant tribe. And when we say today, even like the tribe of Ephraim, we sometimes means all the tribes of the Israelites and not the tribes of Judah, because Ephraim was like the dominant and more important tribe. And it's more like an existential feeling. Gideon from the tribe of Menashe senses lack of belonging and spiritual marginalization. He creates something to compensate. So when he makes the ephod and he brings the ephod into Ophrah, to his hometown, he's like, yeah, we're important. Now we're like on the map because we have this special ephod and the people of Israel coming and worshiping him. So this goes back to his small petty accounting of like, I'm important and my tribe is important, okay? And I'm gonna make sure everyone knows us. Okay, so he's really he has the wrong reasons in doing that. What does no mazel mean? No fortune, not about presence, about spiritual fit. Gideon lacked alignment with priesthood and sacred object creation. Okay, so that means he's like kind of like in the wrong camp. And then the tragic outcome is, even though he made it for heaven, the people misinterpreted it, treated it incorrectly, and it became a religious distortion. So the leadership lesson here is not every problem should be fixed. Gideon saw a gap, his tribe's status, and he tried to create a religious solution. And the result is that he created a bigger spiritual problem by building this ephod for idolatry worship. So he teaches us of boundaries of leadership, that great leader does not mean you have unlimited authority. And Gideon, summarized, is a military hero, but is not a spiritual innovator. And some roles belong to the established institutions, the priesthood, and by him trying to overstep these leadership roles of the priesthood, he wrongs God. Okay, so what happens now? So Yerubbaal, son of Joash, retired to his house. That's Gideon. Gideon had 70 sons of his own issue, for he had many wives. A son was also born to him by his concubine in Shechem, and he named him Avimelech. What does Avimelech mean in Hebrew? What does Abba means? Father, and Melech, what does Melech mean? King.
No.
So Avimelech, okay, his father was king. So wait, Gideon rejected kingdom, but he's hinting to us, I could have been a king, or everyone liked me. I'm like a king. Okay, so he didn't go full way to disobey God by saying, I'll be king, okay, because he didn't consult with God on that, but he said, like, oh, I could have been king. So he's like a little bit vain towards the end of his life. So Gideon, son of Joash, died at a ripe old age and was buried in the tomb of his father Joash at Ophrah of the Abiezrites. After Gideon died, the Israelite again went astray after Baalim. They adopted Baal Berit as a god. The Israelites gave no thought to the eternal, their God, who saved them from all the enemies around them, nor did they show loyalty to the house of Yerubbaal, Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done for Israel. Okay, so what do we learn from that? First of all, here is the burial structure on Gideon Ridge near the settlement of Itamar today, Hill 851, which is traditionally identified as a tomb of Gideon. This is a Muslim structure, but you know, the Muslims identified the different judges. They had traditions that were passed on to them probably by the Christians, and the Christians probably got it from the Jews that were in the land. They passed it on from generation to generation, and someone said, oh, the judge Gideon, he's buried here. If that's true or not, we don't know, but the Muslims sanctified the place, so they build a structure like a holy place, and then they pass it on. And when the Israelis got there after, you know, in the 19th century, and they started hearing about these places, so they made these places holy as well, kind of like a cycle of events. But no one really knows if the real judge is buried here. There's no way to know that. Okay? But the commentator, Metzudat David, has a very interesting commentary about Gideon dwelling in his house. And he says, that is to say, he did not exert himself greatly in leading the people, for he remained at home and in tranquility, and therefore he had many wives and children. So what did he do? He stayed in Ephraim. At retirement, he's like, you know what? I'm done. I made my war. Everyone's coming here to worship me. I'm making so much money off this spectacle of gold that people are doing. And he stayed home. What do you do home when you're bored and you're like the king? He got many wives. His wives, make a lot of kids for him, and that causes a lot of trouble. He has 70 children. Can you imagine 70 children now? Okay, fighting for the inheritance of their father, who's going to be the leader. This is going to create a huge problem for us when we get to chapter 9 next week. But I think it was just really enlightening to see how this story evolves. And next week, we're going to talk more about our Gideon here. We're going to stop our recording if we're able